Desire is not born from chance. It is not a fleeting spark that vanishes into the night. True desire, the kind that consumes a man's heart and leaves him restless in your absence, is an archetypal force. It arises from the depths of his unconscious, where shadows and forgotten symbols wait to be awakened. Every man carries within him the anima, the feminine image etched into his psyche. It is not you he recognizes at first, but the reflection of this inner feminine you stir awake. The more deeply you align with the archetype he has long been searching for, the more his soul feels magnetized, drawn toward you as if fate itself were pulling his heart. But here lies the paradox. The anima is not seduced by perfection. It does not hunger for flawless beauty, nor for constant approval. It longs for mystery, for a woman who does not beg to be understood, but instead demands to be discovered. This is where shadow work weaves itself into attraction, for a woman who has danced with her own shadows, who has embraced her flaws and transmuted them into fire, radiates something unteachable. She does not shrink to fit into his desire. She expands until he cannot help but desire her more. The Stoics whisper that freedom is found in self-mastery. Here, freedom becomes magnetism. A woman who is not enslaved by her longing for him becomes a woman he longs for most. Imagine the tension this creates in him. He reaches for you, but you are not fully within his grasp, not because you play a childish game, but because you are rooted in yourself, a sovereign feminine whose worth does not sway with his attention. It is this sovereignty, this refusal to collapse into need, that ignites the deepest flame of his desire. And so, desire is not something you chase. It is something you awaken, by embodying the archetype that touches his unconscious, by standing in your shadows without shame, by choosing presence over performance. For the man who meets such a woman is not merely drawn to her, he is undone by her, and in that undoing, he will hunger for her with a devotion that no surface beauty could ever command. The second trick is not about action but about absence, about the art of pulling away without announcing your departure. A woman who disappears into herself for a time creates in him a silent vacuum, a haunting echo where her laughter once lingered. Jung would call this the shadow at play, the hidden force he does not consciously understand but cannot resist confronting. In her withdrawal, he is confronted with his own emptiness, his own longing, his own need to pursue what has gone missing. This is not the cruelty of abandonment. It is the poetry of presence and absence. A man must be forced to feel the weight of distance, to awaken in the night with the realization that he is not the center of her world. He must feel the edges of his ego collapse when her light no longer shines solely upon him. This is where the dance of Anima and Animus begins. He, the outward conqueror, suddenly finds himself chasing inner specter, her mystery echoing to the chambers of his psyche. To the feminine, this silence is power. It is not passive. It is the most active form of mystery. A woman who withdraws into her own inner sanctuary embodies individuation itself. She returns to her essence, her own sacred fire, unclaimed, untouched. In this act she whispers without words, I am not yours to possess, I am my own myth, and only those who dare to walk in shadow may seek me. In that silence, he feels the loss of projection. She is no longer the mirror for his fantasies. She has become her own mythological figure, unreachable, shimmering, a goddess cloaked in invisibility. This absence forces him to yearn, to imagine, to hunger in ways that mere presence never could. His desire grows not in the moments she gives, but in the spaces she withholds. It is in that tension between his reaching hand and her untouchable aura that true desire is born. The third trick lies not in silence, but in the mirror of reflection, the way a woman, without trying, can draw a man into the depths of himself simply by embodying her truth. Jung taught that every man carries within him the anima, the feminine image that shapes his capacity to love, to dream, to feel. Yet most men never truly meet her within. They chase her outside, projecting her onto women who cross their path. When a woman does not conform to his projection, when she does not shrink to fit the outlines of his fantasy, something dangerous awakens in him. His psyche trembles, unsettled, forced to confront the raw truth. She is not his dream. She is real, sovereign, unpredictable. This disrupts the safety of his illusions, but also ignites the storm of desire. For nothing pulls a man deeper into longing than the woman who refuses to be the character he has scripted for her. This is the essence of individuation within attraction. When the feminine stands whole, she forces the masculine to see the cracks in his mask. She becomes a mirror of his incompleteness, the reminder of the shadow he has buried, the anima he has silenced. Desire swells not because she flatters his ego, but because she awakens the ache of what is lost within himself. In her presence, he feels both wounded and alive. He resents her for breaking the illusion, yet he cannot look away. Her authenticity, her refusal to contort herself into the role of his savior or servant, pulls him like gravity. It is a paradox every man secretly craves but fears, the woman who is both mirror and mystery, showing him himself while remaining beyond his reach. Thus, she becomes not just a lover in his eyes, but an oracle, an unspoken prophecy of what it could be if only he dared to face his shadows. And in that prophecy, desire burns deeper, for it is no longer just for her body, but for the salvation he senses in her presence. The fourth trick is born from contrast, the delicate weaving of closeness and distance, warmth and withdrawal, softness and steel. Desire does not live in constant availability. It breathes in spaces where uncertainty flickers. A woman who understands this rhythm does not cling, nor does she vanish completely. She moves like the moon across the night sky, sometimes full and radiant, sometimes hidden in shadow. This shifting awakens in a man the primal chase, the ancient hunger carved into the marrow of his being. Jung spoke of tension as the crucible of transformation, the opposites pulling against one another until a third reality emerges. In love, this tension is a dance between presence and absence. When she leans into him, offering tenderness, he tastes security. When she leans away, retreating into her inner world, he feels the pang of loss, the echo of abandonment buried deep in his psyche. It is in that echo that desire sharpens like a blade. A strong man will rise to meet this dance, learning to hold her without possessing her, to pursue her without consuming her. A weaker man, bound by fear, will rage against her freedom, mistaking her movement for rejection. But the woman who knows herself will not dim her rhythm for his comfort. She knows that true desire thrives in polarity, not in suffocating sameness. Her absence is not punishment, it is initiation. It forces him to confront his dependency, his hunger for control, his fear of solitude. Her return is not reward, it is grace, the gift of presence freely given, never coerced. In this ebb and flow, she teaches him the deeper art of love. That passion cannot survive without mystery. That longing cannot exist without space. She does not announce this lesson with words. She embodies it with her very being. And in the silence between her steps, when he does not know if she will lean closer or drift away, his desire grows unbearable, not because she withholds love, but because she reveals its truth. Love is not possession. It is freedom meeting freedom. The fifth trick is not about charm, nor beauty, nor clever manipulation. It is about silence. Not the silence of passivity, but the silence of depth, the kind that unsettles because it cannot be easily filled. Most men are accustomed to women who rush to reassure, to explain, to soothe the fragile cracks in their ego. But when he faces a woman who can hold silence, unflinching, unhurried, he is thrown to the weight of his own unspoken fears. It is here that his shadow stirs. Carl Jung taught that the shadow is everything we repress, everything we fear to acknowledge. When you remain silent in the right moment, you become a mirror where he cannot escape his reflection, his excuses, his games, his evasions. Suddenly they collapse into emptiness, because you do not feed them with your words. In that stillness, he feels a confrontation of himself, and in that confrontation, desire is born anew. It is not compliance that makes a woman unforgettable. It is her ability to disrupt the ordinary. A quiet, measured gaze can cut deeper than 1,000 pleas. A refusal to argue, a calm withdrawal of energy, forces him to reckon with what he risks losing. Silence, then, becomes not absence, but power, a soft power that dismantles pretense and demands truth. But this silence must be sacred, not manipulative. It must emerge from inner strength, not from games of cruelty. A woman who knows her worth does not need to raise her voice to be heard. Her very stillness carries the weight of her boundaries. She is not withholding affection to punish. She is holding her soul intact, refusing to scatter it into noise. In this restraint, mystery deepens. He wonders what storms move behind her eyes, what dreams live in her unspoken world. He feels the pull of her silence as if it were a gravitational force, a field he cannot resist. And in that pull, desire grows. Not the shallow desire for conquest, but a deeper longing to enter her silence and emerge transformed. For the silence of a strong woman is not empty. It is full, alive, sacred. It is the womb of transformation, the place where his soul is forced to face itself. And only the man who is brave enough to endure that stillness can ever truly hold her. The sixth trick is presence, the kind that lingers in the air even when you leave the room. Presence is not merely physical beauty, nor the deliberate effort to be noticed. It is a radiance that comes from within, born of alignment between body, soul, and spirit. Most women believe desire is sustained by constant pursuit, by messages, by reminders, by being always available. But true presence does not chase. It simply exists, magnetic and unshakable. It is a subtle aura that tells him, I am whole with or without you. And paradoxically, that wholeness makes him crave you even more. In Jungian terms, presence is the integration of the anima, the feminine soul that glows when a woman embraces her own depths. A woman who has met her shadows, who no longer runs from her wounds, carries a stillness in her gaze, a confidence in her step, a softness in her silence. She does not bend to please, nor diminish herself to fit. Her very being becomes a kind of music, invisible yet undeniable. This presence unsettles him, for he cannot grasp it. He cannot control it. cannot consume it entirely. It is not something she gives. It is something she is, and in his psyche, where archetypes live, she awakens his longing for the eternal feminine, for the mystery that no conquest can destroy. Imagine standing before a man without performance, no mask, no pretense, only the fullness of who you are. Imagine speaking without rushing, walking without apology, breathing without fear. That is presence, and presence is unforgettable. It is the opposite of desperation, for it does not beg to be seen. It simply shines like the moon, indifferent to whether someone looks up at the night sky. And yet, he cannot resist looking. He cannot resist wondering what it would mean to be chosen by such a woman, one who does not need him but may, in her mystery, want him. This is the paradox of desire. The less you need him, the more he feels drawn to you. The more you remain anchored in your own essence, the more his restless soul reaches toward you, seeking not just a lover, but an anchor, a mirror, a guide. For presence cannot be faked. It is born in shadow work, in grief faced, in boundaries honored, in love cultivated within. And when it blooms, it makes every gesture magnetic, every glance unforgettable, every silence sacred. It is the essence of what men chase but cannot name, a woman who is rooted in herself, untouchable yet inviting, distant yet near. And in the presence of such a woman, desire is no longer shallow. It becomes reverence. Desire, in its truest form, is not born from games, nor from manipulation, nor from the fleeting spark of beauty alone. It is born from depth, from a woman who has walked through her shadows and returned carrying light, from the stillness of her boundaries, the mystery of her silence, the radiance of her presence. Each of the 6 tricks is not a performance to be learned, but a state of being to be embodied. Patience, mystery, rhythm, shadow, sovereignty, presence. Together they weave the fabric of feminine power that does not chase but draws in, that does not demand but awakens, that does not fracture but completes. A man may not understand why he aches for her, why his thoughts return to her in quiet moments, why her absence feels heavier than her presence. But in truth, he is not longing for her alone. He is longing for the part of himself that awakens in her presence. He is drawn not to her body alone, but to the mirror of his soul she silently holds. And you, listening now, are not meant to imitate these truths. You are meant to remember them, for they already exist within you, waiting beneath the noise, beneath the fear, beneath the stories told to you about what love should be. You do not need to grasp for desire. You need only to return to yourself, and let desire come to you like rivers to the sea. When you embody the feminine in her wholeness, mystery and shadow, softness and strength, you do not ask to be desired. You become desire itself. And in that moment, the game ends. For he no longer wants you simply as a woman. He reveres you as a force, a mystery, a truth too vast to be possessed. This is a secret. To make him desire you more, you must never forget who you are without him.